on the biggest weekend of the year for motorsports with the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indianapolis 500, the Coca-Cola 600, and of course, the biggest race of them all that none of those three I just even mentioned compare to. That one's already completed. We have some breaking news in the NASCAR world. Quite significant, I might add. Kyle Busch, for the second time in just a handful of years, his free agent status has been made a big deal, as it should be. He's Kyle Busch. Of course, 2022, we saw all the drama. We saw this go into September. Kyle Busch leaving Joe Gibbs Racing. It was going to be his first time not at the team since like 2008. It was going to be his first time not in a Toyota potentially. It was a very big deal. Whereas this year, it was a little bit more tame. It was a little bit more expected of this news. And then, of course, here we are, not even the end of May, and we know Kyle Busch's status for next season. Kyle Busch will be staying with Richard Childress Racing for a fourth season. Here's the press release. It says, signed, Richard Childress Racing and Kyle Busch announced contract extension through 2026. Richard Childress Racing and Kyle Busch have finalized a contract extension that positions the two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion as driver of the number 8 Chevrolet through 2026, continuing a partnership that combines one of the NASCAR industry's most storied teams with one of the sport's most successful modern-era drivers. We're proud to continue our relationship with Kyle Busch and remain focused on our shared goals of winning races and championships together, said Richard Childress, who, of course, owns Richard Childress Racing. Kyle is a tremendous racer and ambassador of the sport for our fans and partners. Everyone at RCR is committed to putting the pieces in place to enhance the competition side of our business. And then Kyle Busch said, it's an honor to race for Richard Childress, our partners, and Team Chevy fans. I feel like my family and I have found a home at RCR, and it means a lot that Richard continues to put his trust into me. My chapter at RCR is not yet complete, and I know we are building something special here. I remain focused on adding more wins and a championship to our collective resumes, and I want to thank Richard for the steps he is taking to help put all of the necessary pieces into place to give us a legitimate shot at a championship. And then, an important note here, Busch joins Austin Dillon as part of a two-car NASCAR Cup Series lineup in 2026. Kyle Busch also posted on Twitter, excited to fight with the 8-ball team for another year. Of course, it's just the 8 team, but I'm just, exaggerating. So Kyle Busch, 63 wins to his name. He's won over 200 races across all 3 series. There was a lot of questions, I guess, about Kyle Busch when it came to his free agency this time around. Of course, during 2022, he was the biggest free agent since Dale Jr. When Dale Jr. was leaving DEI and ended up at Hendrick Motorsports, this was the highest profile free agent process that NASCAR has had, as I said, since Dale Jr. This time around, though, it seemed pretty straightforward, and that was Kyle Busch returning to Richard Childress Racing. Now, you may say, well, Kyle Busch is still, he's still good. And yes, it's been a while since he's won a race, but it's RCR who's behind. It's RCR who's not doing well. Kyle Busch still has it. He just has to get to a better team. Well, the question I would have for you right now is, where's an opening for Kyle Busch at a better team? Hendrick Motorsports is locked up. In fact, William Byron just signed an extension through 2029 yesterday. Larson and Bowman, I think, are locked up till 26. Elliott till 27, so there's nothing there. Joe Gibbs Racing has 3 cars locked up, and the 4th car that's technically not locked up for next year is Denny Hamlin, and let's be real, it's going to be up to Hamlin. If Hamlin retires, then yeah, I guess that's an opening, but if he wants to stay, he's going to stay in that car. They now have the funding with Progressive, that's pretty much a taken seat. And then we look at Team Penske, and yes, there's a lot of questions about the 2-car now that Tim Cindric has been fired, but Austin Cindric's done fine this year, if you ask me. I think he deserves another year in that seat at least. So there's not really an opening at Team Penske. Well, who else is above RCR? You could argue 2311. Herbst, that seat might be open, but let's be real. If that seat's gonna open, that's going to Corey Heim. I don't think there's any question behind that. So that's really it. Those are the only teams better than RCR or are like in a significantly better position. There are some other teams you would argue are better than RCR, but in terms of how much better, it's like marginal. It's very small. Whereas Hendrick, Penske, Gibbs are significantly above RCR. So once again, in terms of a seat that's better than RCR right now, there's really nothing for Kyle Busch right now. Sure, he could go to a Colleague, he could go to a Spire, he could go, somewhere like that. RFK, RFK is actually kind of locked up. RFK is not really an option, but you get my point. There's some options that he could move that might get him that much better, but there's no huge jump up that's going to be open to him. And also some of these teams, I hate to say it, they might not want to take the risk of signing a 40-year-old Kyle Busch now, even if it's just a 2 to 3 year contract. Now, obviously, this RCR stint it's been an interesting stint to say the least. Remember that first half of 2023, Kyle Busch and RCR, they were going crazy. Won 3 races, were up at the top of the points. I don't know if they were leading, but they were up there, top 5 or so. They were on fire to start off their RCR tenure, winning at Fontana, Talladega, Gateway, different styles of tracks. They looked really fast. Then the second half of 2023 hit, and it wasn't great. They got eliminated early in the playoffs, didn't really do much else, and it didn't get any better in 2024. Kyle Busch misses the playoffs, goes winless for the first time in ever, and then this year, the struggles have continued. They've had their moments, though, where they've looked a little bit better. They've looked a little bit more competitive. But overall, they still have not been able to find that speed, that winning pace that they had at the beginning of 2023. The only glimpse we got of it was at COTA when Kyle Busch finished in the top 5, led the most laps that day. Outside of that, though, we haven't really seen it. So, in terms of where both RCR and Kyle Busch are, this makes sense. RCR, you have a 2-time champion who's still driving pretty well, I would say, doing his best to maximize the car. And yes, the stats may not show that, but I think he's doing a pretty good job in RCR equipment. You look at it, he's beating his teammate Austin Dillon significantly. Now, you can do what you want with that information. But for RCR, it makes sense. You have a 2-time champion. You have a guy who still has the fire under him, who still is trying to win a 3rd Cup Series championship, who wants to be there, who wants to elevate the team. So it makes sense for RCR than for Kyle Busch. Once again, there's just no better option. And then also, you have familiarity with RCR. You've been there for 3 years now. Like, it just makes sense to continue on and try to build something. Try to get back to where RCR was at the beginning of the next gen era in 22-23 when they're winning a few races a year. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes these next, year and a half, at least for Kyle Busch and RCR. As for the second part of that news, Austin Dillon, as long as he wants to drive, he's going to have a seat at RCR. So that's not a shock. I think he said the other day on a podcast or something that his contract's up at the end of 26, so we'll see what he does there. Ultimately, if he decides to not drive one day, he's going to end up being a higher up at RCR. He has a great mind. He was obviously a part of getting Kyle Busch to RCR. So, as for Austin Dillon, that really not much else to say there. But for Kyle Busch, he will be staying at Richard Childress Racing in 2026. Maybe beyond. We'll see one day. But, makes sense for both of them for where they are at this point. But Kyle Busch, 63 Cup Series career wins. We'll see when he gets his next with RCR. Will it be this year or next year? As I said, we'll see. But thanks for watching this video. As I said, we got a big weekend this weekend. Lando Norris just won pole at the Monaco Grand Prix. Set a new track record, by the way. That was pretty cool. But we got the Indianapolis 500 after the Monaco Grand Prix tomorrow. And then we got the Coke 600 tomorrow night. So we will talk about them all right here.